Hello, everybody. It's Jason here with Levelhead Trading. Going to give an update here on Tesla. Just going to look at the daily charts and the weekly charts. So I'll tell you a little funny story. If any of you have been watching, I was talking about $175 as my initial target for buying, for the first time ever, Tesla. So I had an open order at $175. And yesterday, the low price was 175.01. So 1 penny, I would have bought my first Tesla, and it just went up after that. But anyway, this is what's going on. Everything is looking pretty much precisely as the way that I have been thinking it's going to turn out. So on the daily chart, we had prior to Monday and Tuesday, which are these two days, we had this range here where the low of 180 and the high of 196. And then the next day you rejected from that. And then you kind of had an inside bar, and then you held that 180, and the low was 182. Yesterday was breaking the lows of all of this and hitting 175.01 right on the line. And then today we had an engulfing candle, which completely engulfed the previous day. Yeah, because the high of yesterday was 184.68 and we closed at 185.10. So that's a very positive sign. And so again, you haven't really proven anything yet, but now I'm going to go to the weekly chart. And if you remember, I was talking about how the weekly candle I thought might end up with a wick. Well, the week is early, so it's just 1 second here. Okay, so it's only Tuesday, so the weekly candle has 3 more days before we'll see what it looks like. But if this was Friday, this is exactly how I was expecting the weekly candle to potentially look. So here's the weekly chart. Come on, weekly chart. So you see how this weekly candle looks at the moment? Again, we're only 2 days into the week, but there's that wick. I was talking about that wick. I was talking about the way the weekly candle ends up looking by the end of the week. And the previous time, notice the similarities of these candles. This was the 152 low, where then Tesla took off and just went straight up. That's the weekly candle. And here we are with this weekly candle. The other thing was, and I didn't mention this in the last video, but I've mentioned it many times before, the 61.8% retracement. So if you create a bull flag, you're only going to retrace from here to the top, whatever it comes out to. If it's going to be a bull flag, it would probably be somewhere around here, that you're not going to break that low, because you need to not drop more than approximately 40%. So what I've done, in adjusting to my trading, I go, okay, if we're getting quite past a 40% drop from the low to the high and then back down again, then the next area to me is going to be that 61.8% approximate retracement. So that 175 is exactly right at that Fibonacci retracement of 61.8. And the weekly candle, the other sign to me, is it falls precisely on this trend line. If it holds right around this area, it doesn't have to be exact, but if it holds right around this area, then that will be 3 touches, giving more of a validation of this channel. So you have the top, which at the time I drew it, it basically had 3 touches already. And when I was talking about Tesla, it was up in this, probably up in this area. And I drew the line based on these two, trying to visualize where potentially, if this is going to be a channel, then the next area is going to land, somewhere around this area. So we've got those 2 points. And then the third point is creating a higher low um, relative to that, which is 152. And actually, the fourth point, which I brought up in my last video, was how similar this pullback looks. It just plays out over a longer period of time, but it's a descending channel where you finally find the bottom and you create a higher low to the previous low. And here was your descending channel, right? I could draw a trend line based on these two. It'll only be these two. And then it broke bull before it made, another attempt for a lower low, because then it would have to break below that if it was going to be continuing. But the first one creates a higher low from here to here. You find your higher low right there. And now you do this, which again, it takes longer because you had a much bigger move. So to me, that's the reason why it's going to take a lot longer, because it's a much bigger move from here to there than it was basically from here to there. So they're all lining up very similar. And another point I'll make is, I brought this up before too, when the average on either direction, when the average is so far away from the actual, I'm sorry, this is the average RSI on the weekly chart, and this is the actual RSI on the weekly chart. So when it gets too far away, either if it's on the top, if the actual RSI gets too far away, it will come back and at least touch it. But here was the top, right? So if you were going to continue the uptrend, then you would just touch it and then you would proceed higher and then create a higher high. But if you're going to change the trend, then you're going to end up getting below it, and then it's going to act as resistance, and then you get so far below it, then it comes up and touches it again. And then one last push, and then it comes back. But now we're so far below the average, I believe then we're going to come back up to the average and initially touch it at some point. So that's the other thing. And the last point is the bigger time frame. Another thing where you get too far above it and too far below it. So I have all these things lining up. I have the RSI, where you're so far below the average and the average at this point, and the 200-week moving average. Here's the 200-week moving average, which is going up. The average is going up, and now we are this far below the average. Then I find it highly unlikely, unless there's more bad news, which to me, all the bad news is already out there, except for now, right? They're talking about Elon Musk drug use and so forth and all that stuff. I mean, I think people have already known that he's a little out there, but he's a genius. So far below the 200-week moving average is another point in favor of it finding its bottom very soon, if not already. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be buying, I'm hoping that we won't go up. We'll have another little pullback between Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. If it happens tomorrow, then I'll do it tomorrow. But the way my plan is going to be for Tesla is, I missed that 175 and it might not get back down there. But I'm going to buy about half of what I want to buy tomorrow, potentially, if it's around this price, and definitely if it's down a couple dollars from this price. I want to use half of what I want to use for long term, where I do not want to sell it until it, you know, potentially goes much, much, much higher. So I have a core position, and I'm just going to use half because I don't want to put everything in at this price potentially tomorrow at 185 with a $10 difference from the most recent low, which is about a little, I think it's a little more than 5%, maybe 5.5%. I mean, that's still, even if I were to put everything I wanted to go in for a long term, it's still, a very small risk if I were to use 175 as my stop loss. But the reason I don't want to put everything in is because I don't want to. I want to give room for potentially it getting back down to that price again. Then I'll feel much more comfortable adding my second half. And if I just add my first half and then it just goes up from here, then I'll still be happy because I got in, I was patient, it got to the target area that I was anticipating, and then at a future time, I will add more on the daily higher on the daily higher lows. So I'll have a core position no matter what. It might not be as much as I want, but then if it does go up and up and up, then I will wait for an hourly oversold, which would mark the daily higher low, because you still have to change the daily trend, even if it goes up. If it goes up to 190 tomorrow, and if it goes to 195 the next day, at some point it needs to pull back and then form a higher daily low and then go past whatever price it goes up to confirm the daily trend change. So I have a plan for either way, if you get all that. So anyway, that's my video for today. I hope you like it. Everything's just going exactly as I have been thinking it's going to go. So we got a lot of things pointing that this is the bottom, or very, very close to the bottom. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Have a good rest of the day, and probably make a video in 2 days.